Hello everyone, wherever you are in the world. As usual, I've been guided to sit down and make a video for you all today. I'm preparing to run a one-day channeling workshop next Saturday, which is the 8th of July. And if you're watching this video in the future, I'm sure I'll be running it again. But while I've been mulling over the topic of channeling and what that means to me, and there's so many different levels to it, and I often say channeling isn't just a party trick. Channeling is really part of the embodiment of our original divine blueprint and our true gifts and abilities that we're kind of supposed to have as a humanity. For me, and I just wanted to explain and explore a couple of the really embodied experiences and processes that I have as a channel, and what that means to me in translating the world around me and the physical world around me. And as many of you know, I'm an alchemist and a healer, and I do a lot of earth service work as well, a lot of work in my own time, just kind of looking at themes that are playing out on a bigger stage and looking at it through the lens and the mirror of my own experience and how it is impacting me. And when we do healing, and when I teach healing and I teach channeling and I teach alchemy and all these things, it really is about seeing the outer world as a lens or a mirror of what is going on within you. And it really is our perception that creates our reality. The quantum physics and all of that backs that up. But I was sitting on my couch on Saturday morning, and I was sort of tuning in around the channeling workshop and the itinerary for that, and I was doing a little bit of clearing, and I was looking at some themes that were coming up for myself, really just stuff in my personal life, just, old patterns, things like that, wanting to get through. And this often happens when I sit down to do a healing for myself. It then translates out. It's like I can zoom out on the bigger picture, and it translates into a bigger theme that's going on in the consciousness of humanity. And I was sitting with it and just sort of meditating on it, and I had this really incredible, profound, embodied experience of the interconnectedness of all people and all things. And now that's not the first time that's happened to me. I've had glimpses of it. I've had experience of rapid Kundalini awakening, huge crown chakra openings, 1313 on my clock, as usual, as I'm recording this. I love it when they always make it across the double numbers. But this time it was different. This time it was different in that usually my experience of that interconnectedness comes through deep meditation and going into a state of deep trance, and usually I have my eyes closed, but this time it was incredible. I was awake and conscious. I was just sat upright. I wasn't dropped into meditation, but I was just working away, mulling over these themes, and boom, all of a sudden I could feel myself as part of the whole, and I felt every soul as an aspect of me, and me as an aspect of every other soul, including the soul of the earth, including the divine and all things. And I just spontaneously started to cry with just this outpouring of love, And I've had moments like that. Usually I have moments of spontaneous projectile crying when I'm in a high vibration power portal, such as the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Egypt. The Glastonbury Goddess Temple is one that often makes me weep. It's just this feeling of being moved by something so much bigger than us, but feeling the interconnectedness of it all, and just knowing that it is all love. In my book, Archangel Alchemy Healing, I do talk about the interconnectedness of all things, and how it is actually mathematically impossible for us to be outside of the divine. We are actually scientifically and mathematically built on that divine design. So even in the darkest of the dark, there is always the potential for light, or the speck of light. And even in the brightest of light, there is always the potential for dark. So we might say that even when we're, doing the best we can, there's potential to do wrong. And when we're doing wrong, there's potential to do right. And it's all where we put our perspective. So I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and about how, as healers and light workers, that feeling of helplessness when we look out at the world and we see great darkness and we see, what we might call evil. And I, really been sitting in this embodiment of it and thinking, well, if I'm witnessing great evil in the world, then I also need to witness that in myself and forgive it and heal it. And this is how we're going to heal the collective, is if we can look into ourselves and acknowledge that there's a balance of all things, that we are equally the angel and the devil, we're both. Then we can forgive ourselves, and then that translates into the lens through which we are witnessing the world. But it's not just witnessing, it is actually co-creating. And this is brave work, really, really brave work, because to look out at the world, to watch the news, to see some of the absolutely heinous things going on out there, it's, absolutely, it's not about condoning anything like that. But it is about putting our attention on the seat of the soul, on the spark of the soul, and trusting that there is great potential for people to change. If we box people in, to certain labels or titles or expectations, we can hinder them from changing. And I see this all the time. I see this in my healing practice. When I'm working with a client one-on-one, I see this in the microcosm. When you can sit in unconditional love and non-judgment for a person and allow them to be seen and held, then something happens in the space between you. When somebody feels seen, when somebody feels loved and accepted, a really amazing transformation goes on. But of course, there is also the other side. There's the other person's willingness to change. So it's very difficult to help somebody to change or come out of their patterns, their abuses, their traumas, if they're not willing to change. However, we as the alchemists are really powerful here, because if we see everything as a mirror of what's going on in ourselves, we can always find the program within. So when you look out at the world and you see somebody doing something and you see them as being unwilling to change, maybe ask yourself, wow, where is this in me? Where is their behavior playing out through me, even on a subconscious level? And as we expand our consciousness out and we become so much more aware of bigger concepts, also we have to look deeper within and we have to go deeper into that subconscious. And some might call it the shadow. Jung called it the shadow. However, really, I just prefer to see it as our deep subconscious. They're just the bits of us that have been hidden from us for a really, really long time. So I'm always willing to go into my deep subconscious programming and find those patterns. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about blame and assigning blame. And for a long time as an empath in my life, I would constantly turn on myself. I would always kind of think, oh, if I had a situation with somebody that was uncomfortable or there was a miscommunication, I would end up berating myself, turning blame on myself, and believing that I must be the problem. And that was usually because I didn't want to hurt another. But I wasn't recognizing that in sort of laying myself down as the doormat or carrying all the blame or taking all the responsibility, that I was actually harming myself. And I live by the practice of harm to none. However, I was really harming myself for a long time. And when I sat down and I had this embodied experience on Saturday, I really saw, oh my goodness, this is why on some level I have been holding blame or holding myself accountable for some of the stuff that's gone on, not just on a personal level, but on a collective level. Like there's this whole thing of, oh gosh, how am I complicit in this? But the thing is, we're either all part of creating it or we're all part of enabling it. So if we're seeing it in our world from the perspective of you, this is your world. You are the center of your own world. Everywhere you turn is your world. You are in the center of your world, your universe. And you can see that as overwhelming or disempowering, or you could use it to harness great power. And the more we come into this divine, sort of divine blueprint, some might call it superhuman consciousness, super consciousness, when you can really acknowledge, it's not just acknowledge, but really come into the embodiment of everything is divine and it's all me, and there is no savior, it's me, then we can take great responsibility for everything that we see in our world, and we can endeavor to change it. We can endeavor to transform it, to alchemize it, transmute it. And I'm not saying that's going to be overnight, but the more of us that can do that, that can have the courage to really look without blame, without putting yourself on the back foot of blame, but also it's just honoring that somewhere in me is a reflection of this, because I'm made of the same stuff as the stars. We're all connected through that web of divine consciousness, and on some level we are all the one mind of God, Goddess, divine. So I find that that's a really empowering concept, actually, and it isn't to be feared. But when we can come into the acknowledgement of our own power, that really is about integrity. You know, are we going to use it for good or ill? When we're working at this level of consciousness, every micro thought, every micro intention creates a ripple effect. So it's really, really feeling into, what am I putting out into the world? What am I expecting? You know, we can expect the worst, hope for the best, or we can expect the best and trust in the best playing out. And then we can effectively start directing the course of our life onto a much, much higher timeline. And as I've said in previous videos, I am seeing all these timeline shifts playing out, which is really, really interesting. The guides also want me to talk to you a little bit about the alien question today. And yep, aliens are something that I've talked about quite a lot in previous videos when I've been talking about channeling. I probably haven't talked about them quite as much as I would have liked to, but the subject matter used to make me quite nervous about putting myself out there. I was quite comfortable for a long time saying I could talk to angels, but when it came to saying, oh, yes, I talk to aliens too, and elementals and all and sundry, I was a bit nervous about that. But now I think there are enough people awakened on the planet and aware of the beautiful beings of light that are here to help us, that I find that I can't not talk about it, really. And this question is now coming up. And the wonderful thing about it is that we've got a lot going on in the press recently about UFOs. NASA's put out a conference about UFOs and anomalies. A number of years ago, I remember there was I think it was a New York Times article about the alien question and disclosure. I've got a really good friend called Steve Bassett in America, who is the only registered lobbyist in the USA for alien disclosure, and he's really championing that cause, and loads of other amazing friends doing wonderful work on this planet to bring this out into the open. However, I sort of come at this from a slightly different angle, because what I'm seeing play out in the news and the media is some of it is quite based around fear. And what I think might start to happen is the powers that be might start using the alien topic to try to instill some fear into the population again. And those of us who are on an awakened path actually know that, yes, there are two sides to every coin. And yes, we have had interfering galactics in our human race, in our story of Earth, but we also have incredible alliances. And one of these beautiful alliances that I work with all the time is the Higher Galactic Council of Light, and they're infinite in number. But also, one of the things that I've come to learn over the years is that they are us. Many of us are actually members of them. And if you are familiar with the term starseed, you might yourself be familiar with feeling like you belong somewhere else, or that you've come from somewhere else, or that you are part of a loving alliance of these beautiful stellar races and stellar guides. And when I teach channeling, we do connect with them, we work with them, as well as the Elohim and the angels and the archangels and our our spirit guides and our spirit team, and we work multidimensionally across the board. But all of it, everything that I teach, is coming through your own highest soul self, your own divine will and authority. And again, it comes from that perspective that it's all you. It's all you on some level anyway. So if you're encountering darkness, the key to clear that is to go in and find the program, the pattern, the trapped emotion, the fear within you, in order to clear that. And it's all balance, it's all about balance. When I'm working with loving beings, it's not about putting them on a pedestal. It's about having an open dialogue, a two-way conversation, and honoring that, from the perspective of your divinity, you can transcend anything. And that includes astrology, that includes solar flares, Schumann resonance, and all the things that we're being barraged with at the moment. So coming out of that, raising your consciousness up to a level where you can actually say, look, universe, I don't accept this, this, and this. I don't want this in my world. I'm choosing a world of peace. I'm choosing a world of bliss. I'm choosing a world of love and devotion for all. And, the more of us that hold that intention, that it's enough for all, everything that we want for ourselves, we intend that, that everybody else have what they need, not in the same way we would need it, but that they all have access to enough food, enough water, enough money, because we need money in this dimension to survive, and that all our needs are met. So just a little bit of a message to just be aware that there are quite a few agendas out there at the moment to instill fear into the population, and one of them is going to be, we've already got fear of money and lack and loss and all this playing out. We've had the pandemic, we've had it all. But just to be aware that the alien question might start coming up in the news more and more, and that there is going to be an attempt to instill fear into the population. Now, of course, we know that the governments are in touch with aliens, but the beautiful thing is that so are we. So many of us have been contacted and have open dialogue with these loving beings. And I think there's enough people, it's like critical mass. I think there's enough people on the earth now who aren't going to buy into this, because we have our own relationship with them and we don't need the middleman. This whole thing of needing a middleman to talk to the cosmic councils is ridiculous. We have a direct line to the divine. You don't need a master, a teacher, a guru, a church to connect to your divinity, to have a conversation with God. I think that's very old paradigm. I am of the belief that we are all healers, we're all alchemists, we all have magic in us, and it's just about whether or not you choose to develop it. We're all psychic, we're all clairvoyant, clairaudient, and when I teach these channeling classes, I never have one person go away without the ability to channel in some way. So that was something I wanted to share. The other thing that I love, and I was shown the other day that there is actually a new comet coming, and I got shown this comet. We had a green comet recently, but it wasn't that one. It was this new comet, and they kept showing me the color purple. This purple comet is coming. This purple comet is coming. And I went online and I Googled purple comet, and there is indeed a new comet that has been discovered, and it was discovered by the Purple Observatory, which I think is based in China, and we should be able to see this comet with the naked eye by October next year, October 2024. Now, what the guides are saying to me now is that this comet there's something about this comet that is going to herald an incredible time of a huge upsurge of magic and alchemy on this planet. And we're going to find that loads more people are going to go through a huge awakening to their spiritual gifts. And it's a little bit like a flashlight on magic, is what I'm being told. It's going to amplify our ability to manifest. It's going to bring in incredible miracles, and we're going to start to see, for those of us who've been doing a lot of clearing and healing work for the planet, we're really going to start to see the positive impact of the work that we have been doing in the world. They're also saying that this is going to have a positive impact on wealth, money, and abundance. I keep being told that the world debt is going to be cancelled. It's going to be cleared and reset. Often they show me the bigger picture. They don't show me like the intricacies of how that's going to happen. And maybe that's because I don't really want to know. I don't know. So however kind of hairy or scary or weird it gets on the surface, just trust that you can choose your own timeline. You don't have to get caught up in all of that fear, just I refuse to watch news and things like that. And if I'm meant to see a news story, my guides will tell me, or it'll pass by me in conversation, or I'll see it on Facebook or something. But the whole cost of living crisis thing, I just see stuff like that and I'm like, no, I'm not part of that. I don't accept that. And I ask my guides to block any of that. And because all of that is perception, and if you allow it to come into your perception, then you are helping to create it. So I just say, no, I'm not playing. I don't buy it. It's not for me. I'm on a higher timeline. I'm choosing abundance. I'm choosing to live my best life ever. And, we came here to experience the pleasure garden. We came to experience heaven on earth. And to experience heaven on earth, we have a right to have our core wishes and desires fulfilled. So there's a lot of, I find, like old paradigm, old spiritual programming around lack and poverty and, vows of poverty, vows of silence, vows of abstinence, and this whole thing about non-attachment. Well, non-attachment doesn't mean we're kind of floating around the world and not in it, not engaging with it and not having it and using it. We've got to be in the world. We're humans as well as divine. We have to integrate both parts. So yes, it's wonderful to go and spend hours sitting and meditating, but also we need to ground our meditation into our daily waking reality, and that is part of the embodiment of what we came here to do. So all of my, all my teachings, all my books, all my oracle decks, everything I create is around that theme of saying yes to heaven on earth, but not in the way somebody else tells you should, but in the way that would be absolutely perfect for you, because my version of heaven on earth might be different to yours, and so on and so forth. So we all have different needs. We all have different desires. And it isn't about suppressing those desires, but it is about aligning those desires with integrity and divine right action, asking for what we need. And I always say, please, let my needs be met if it's for my highest good with harm to none, and in alignment with divine right action and integrity, and then you can't really go wrong. And if you are heading down a pathway towards something that your higher self deems isn't for your highest good, then you will swiftly be maneuvered back on to the right path. So yeah, a couple of themes there. Also in terms of emotions, I just ran a really lovely workshop at Atlantis Bookshop in London. That was an absolute honour. Thank you, Jerry and Barley, for having me. Big shout out to those beautiful women. What an amazing experience. And we worked with the Water Alchemy Oracle, and we were looking at obviously working a lot with emotional alchemy. And one of the things that I always teach when it comes to emotions is that the key is to get comfortable in your discomfort. Get comfortable in the uncomfortable emotions, because we're set to be barraged even more yet on this planet. And if we can sit in those emotions and be loving to ourselves, be loving to our feelings, then we can't be manipulated, we can't be pushed around. And most often, if you can sit with an emotion and be loving with it, you will transmute it, you will move it through. A key question to ask yourself is, why is this emotion here? If it's something like suppressed anger or guilt or shame or even jealousy, whatever it is, what is it here to teach me, or how is it helping me? How is it serving me? How is it protecting me? So, one of the things I was looking at, a lot of us hold a lot of grief, and that's the theme coming up for this video today. And grief is, kind of, usually it's stored around the heart and the lungs. Some of us have grief stored in our bodies where we don't even know where it comes from. And that grief might just come from lifetimes of feeling unseen, unheard, or feeling confused, or maybe never feeling like we've gotten what we want. Maybe we've never said yes to ourselves. It could be to do with childhood issues, wherever that grief comes from. There's an invitation here just to sit with it, acknowledge your grief, just let it be there, and allow yourself just to say to yourself, it's okay for me to feel this. It's okay for me to feel this. Often we judge ourselves for our feelings, but trapped grief and unchecked grief can often lead to deeper things like depression and ongoing anxiety. But it's okay to acknowledge your grief, because the thing about grief is that it's love. If you've experienced loss of a loved one, or even loss of a job or a career, or something in your life hasn't worked out the way you'd hoped, you might be experiencing grief. And grief takes as long as it takes to process. There's no rushing through it, and it can rear its head in the most unlikely of times. So have patience with your grief. Know that if you're grieving someone or something, or even an aspect of yourself, it's a sign that you are loved, or that that person was loved. It's a bit of a benchmark for the love that you are holding in your heart, for the love that you feel. And it's born of deep compassion. It's born of the capacity to love. And the more we love someone and we lose them, the deeper the grief. And, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means that you have a really deep capacity to love, and that needs honoring. And allowing your tears to flow, allowing your emotions to come up is very healing. When emotions get stuck in the body, they can actually lead to deeper issues and eventually even disease in the body. So we want to process our emotions as much as we can and acknowledge them. And then they become a great compass, because, as I said, if you can sit with your emotions, you can't be manipulated. So on that note, I want to pull a card from the Water Alchemy Oracle for us today, just to ask what we need to know. I'm hearing the word fear. And on the alien question and the purple star note, I've just pulled the nebula card. Look at that. And, scientists believe that water originally came to Earth through comets. It was carried here through comets. But this card is really about acknowledging the divinity within you. We are made of the same stuff as the stars, and we are all world creators. You're creating your world every time you have a thought. So how would you create your world anew? This card is also saying to me, oh my goodness, we have so much support from all of the loving beings in the cosmos. And I'm just going to read from the book, the message. So the message is, you are original. And we all are, because our consciousness is divine. So every single one of us, whether we physically walked on other planets or in other star systems, we're all connected. So it means we've all had those experiences on some level. And we can all tap into the information available to us. It's actually in our DNA. It's housed in the supercomputer of our DNA. So it says, you are not from here, and yet you were here at the dawn of time. You are the divine made physical. Your body is finite, and yet your soul is infinite. You are a creator god, goddess with access to the living waters of all life. And of course, water, as that beautiful primordial substance, is the gateway between thought and form. The waters of the womb, the primordial waters of the earth, is where all life first came into being. So water as an amplifier. And as I leave this message, we've entered the sign of Cancer. There's a lot of stuff going on with Neptune. I'm not an astrologer, but I love watching the work of lovely Pam Gregory. She's talking about all the stuff going on. And as I record this video as well, we're about to have a supermoon in Capricorn. So it's an amazing time for manifesting. So just think about what you would amplify into the living waters of the cosmos, which I see as the energy of all things, the plasma, the living light. What are you projecting into that? What are you expecting? If we expect the worst, we're usually going to get it. But if we could look into our future and into the unknown and expect the very best and have no fear, but just have tell yourself you're in anticipation. That I love that wonderful word trepidation, because trepidation is almost like a mixture of nervousness, but it's usually also a mix of excitement. I feel a bit trepidatious, but it's actually more of an excitement. So really expect that what is in the unknown is better than you could ever have imagined, and that is what shall come to pass. The more you trust, the more you're bringing that to bear. And ask your loving guides and star beings for help. I work with a gorgeous group, another group of angelic star beings who call themselves the intergalactic and interdimensional Elohim. Very, very high frequency beings. And in the deck as well, I've written about one of them. Her name is Siriana. She's a beautiful star being. Her home exists in the dimensions of light, in the trailing tails of shooting stars. So she is a wish Elohim. So she's like this beautiful star being with these huge glittering wings, and she comes in to help with wish fulfillment. And she says, as long as you are pure of heart in your intention, and your wish is again with harm to none, you can say her name 3 times, Siriana, 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 and say your wish, and she will deliver it to the shooting stars. We always wish upon a star, don't we? So there's an invitation tonight to wish upon a star, trust in the outcome, hope for the best, expect the best, and allow love to fill your world. So I'm excited for what's going to unfold. We're in really new territory here as a humanity, and I think that there's so many blessings yet to come for us all. Thank you so much. If anyone would like to join me this Saturday, the 8th of July 2023, for the one-day channeling workshop, all the details are on my website, alexandrawenman.com/events. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'll speak to you again soon.